This video has been a long time coming, and I've had people requesting me to do a legendary sidearm tier list for a very long time, upwards of 2 years actually. And this season, it kind of felt like the best time to get around to doing that with the recent special ammo economy changes and the introduction of 2 new legendary sidearms into the loot pool, including the returning Drang, which is fully craftable now, and the first ever adept sidearm, the Forgiveness. Now, there are a lot of sidearms in the game right now that are not sunset, and some of them that aren't sunset are actually unobtainable too. So, that makes this process a little bit tricky, and I'm hesitant to include weapons that can no longer be obtained, but I'll consider them nonetheless. What we'll do is talk about my top 5 sidearms overall. Since there's so many, I'll boil it down to my top 5. We'll chat about their strengths, their weaknesses, and then after talking about all that, we'll rank these 5 from the number 1 best legendary sidearm in the game right now, in my opinion, down to the number 5. And remember, I mean, these are the top 5, the cream of the crop. So even the one that falls in the number 5 slot is going to be an exceptional sidearm and a great choice. And, that's why it made the cut. And then at the end of the video, I'll show you, like, my full tier list breakdown of all the relevant sidearms. So I'll have, like, a graphic with, S tier, A tier, B tier, etc. And you can see where maybe your favorite sidearm falls in my personal ranking spectrum. So there are a lot, you got the Peace Bond, the Keening, Forgiveness, Drang, Empirical Evidence, Farewell, Spoiler Alert, Enigma's Draw, High Albedo, Swift Verdict, Brass Attacks, Redback, Punching Out, Fool's Remedy, the 7th Seraph, SI2, the Lonesome, the Vision, the Last Dance. I mean, there are others too that can technically be used that aren't sunset, but I don't know that. So I'm going to leave some of the peripheral ones out because they're just not applicable to the discussion. So none of those are remarkable enough to put in the video. So anyways, that's the pool of sidearms that we're working with. All right, with all of those sidearms to choose from, let me get right into my top 5 picks. In no order yet, these are going to be the Drang, the Empirical Evidence, the Swift Verdict, the Keening, and Forgiveness. Those are my top 5. Now, already, I know some people are rushing to the comments section. I didn't include their favorite one, the one they think is the best. You're already typing out, you're crazy if you think the Brass Attack or the Peace Bond or whatever your favorite sidearm is. You're crazy if you think that isn't in the top 5. So first, let me just say this. These are my picks based off of my objective experience with sidearms, and there isn't a sidearm in the game that I have not used a lot of. I have tried them all, and I still even use sunset ones because I just like some of them. And I've tried them not just in quick play, but also in survival and in trials and all kinds of playlists. To this day, I have racked up around 75,000 total final blows with sidearms in PvP, mostly on my main account, and then some also on my free-to-play account that I manage as well. And there are some sidearms that I use just because I like them. But then there are sidearms that I use because I know they're really freaking good for various activities. And that myriad of, some things are really good in sixes, some are really good in eliminations, some are really good in survival, right? Or some are really good with just a specific build. And so these are the ones, the cream of the crop. That's how I landed on these 5. They're the ones that I know if I really need to win, they're going to help me get the job done. And they are all equal, though. Some of them do certain things better than others and fit specific roles. So let's hit them all one at a time, and then we'll rank them. We'll go oldest to newest, which means that the Keening is up first. Technically, the Drang and the Swift Verdict are older, but they were reissued with brand new perks and crafting options, which means their current models are they're newer. So, all right, the Keening. Why does it make the top 5? I recently did a video completely breaking this sidearm down. So if you want an in-depth discussion on it, feel free to check that out. But here is the TLDR. The Keening is an adaptive frame sidearm, which means it has the fastest optimal TTK of any primary in the game, that archetype of weapon. If you hit 4 headshots, they drop 0.6 seconds. That already makes the weapon very desirable because the skill ceiling means if you master it, you're going to be doing some really nasty things to people that they barely have time to react to. Not only that, but the base stats on the weapon are really great and can be even better with just a simple combination of barrel perks and mag perks and a masterwork. That's the thing about the Keening, is that you can crank up anything you really want to without having the other parts suffer. So if you're like, I want stability, you know what, you can go, you have like 80 stability on a Keening. And you can do that, and you'll still be able to have a good, good range, high handling on it as well. Nothing else has to suffer for that. And the same is true for anything else in the gun. You crank up what you want without having the other parts suffer. But beyond that, the Keening has an enormous perk pool. I mean, we're talking about 24 total perks. So tons of combinations there. Double most weapon perk pools. It's like 2 guns in one. And after a couple of Crucible rank up, resets this season, you're going to be getting sometimes 5 to 6 perk options on a Keening when it drops. Meaning you're going to end up with some nutty combinations that are only going to make this thing even better than it already is. So you've got, threat detector, surplus, moving target, killing wind, snapshot, just tons of perks that are going to make the base performance of this gun skyrocket up to S tier. And then you've got, multi-kill clip in the second column, so you can chain kills like a boss. And the thing about multi-kill clip is that it makes it so that you can get that 4-shot kill without having to be perfectly precise. You can just go 2 to the head, 2 to the body, and it's done. That's a lot of built-in forgiveness. It's a seriously fantastic sidearm, and that's why it makes the cut in the top 5 legendary sidearms in the game right now. Moving on to the Swift Verdict. The first thing I want to say about the Swift Verdict is that one of the best things that it has going for it is that it's a free-to-play legendary sidearm with an insanely cracked out perk pool. No DLC needed. Go get it. Target farm it if you want. Get a couple of friends with you and get an S tier sidearm for any PvP activity. And let me just get this out of the way right off the bat. Swift Verdict is a precision frame that can roll kill clip. Can you imagine if someone was running around with a cryesthesia with kill clip? I mean, it's nutty. That means that this thing can be dumping out 75 damage per shot. As a sidearm, that's insane. But listen to this perk pool. It's literally like all A and S tier perks, save for one, The first column you've got surplus, threat detector, killing wind, slide shot, tunnel vision, and full auto. I hate full auto on anything that's supposed to be a semi-automatic weapon. I hate full auto. It's instant trash for me if it rolls full auto. Personal preference. But all the others are superb and can totally be leveraged. Second column has kill clip, wellspring, disruption break, zen moment, rangefinder, and surrounded. This perk pool is friggin' stacked. It's loaded. Half of the rolls that you get on this weapon are going to be exceptional. So go fire up the Prophecy Dungeon, get to the cube encounter, swap the checkpoint on another character, and just start farming it, There are only 3 things that can drop from this encounter: the auto rifle, the sidearm, and some gloves. So your chances of getting what you want, pretty decent. So block out an hour, get 5 to 6 completions while chatting with your buds, and best of luck. Just know that this thing is a precision frame sidearm, so it's got really good base range, and you don't just want to spam these things. You almost want to treat it like a Drang, where you line up your shot and take your shot, and if you're landing headshots, man, they are going to melt, and you'll see some just absolute melts in the gameplay in the background. All right, next up, we have the empirical evidence. This aggressive 2-round burst sidearm came with the arrival of the Witch Queen DLC and was initially written off by most folks. They weren't crazy about the perk pool, and the recoil animation was a barrier of entry for many players too. But here's the thing about those 2 drawbacks. First, Bungie actually patched the recoil to make it mimic the Breachlight sidearm, historically one of the greatest legendaries in Destiny 2. Second, the Destiny community is weird about perks. They are still hung up on perks from year 1 of Destiny 1. So if a gun doesn't have rangefinder or kill clip, zen moment, things like that, they immediately dismiss it for some unknown reason. The perk pool on the empirical evidence basically consists of almost all relatively new perks. The first column has ensemble, tunnel vision, pulse monitor, compulsive reloader, perpetual motion, and encore. Now, 3 of these are absolute bangers. 3 of them are definitely not. Tunnel vision is nasty on sidearms. I love it. My favorite peace bond that I use has tunnel vision on it, so I know the value that it can bring to a burst weapon in CQC. Encore is just now starting to catch on. People are getting wise to the insane buffs that you get from this perk. It is seriously good. But my favorite option here is perpetual motion. On a sidearm, it's basically always on and giving you big, free buffs to the neutral performance of the weapon, making them nasty dueling weapons. Not only that, but this weapon is fully craftable after completing literally just 1 red border of it. and then you've got enhanced versions of these perks working for you. Getting into one of these is super easy compared to a Drang. The second column has Adagio, Unrelenting, Wellspring, Thresh, Swashbuckler, and Harmony. Again, people are just now starting to catch on to the massive buffs that you get from Harmony and the clutch healing of Unrelenting. And I ran Enhanced Unrelenting for a long time on my empirical evidence, but recently I swapped to using Enhanced Adagio in this column because of the insanely easy 2-burst kills. I cannot stress this enough. So many people are overlooking the kill chaining potential of Adagio. You have a long timer, and the enhanced version of Adagio gives you even more time on the clock. And you can stack Adagio kills to refresh that timer and overfill that timer to give you even extra time. It's crazy. And you literally can't compete with how fast this gun kills with Adagio active. If you step into a duel with a Guardian with full health and Adagio up on the evidence, you better pray to the Lord above, Tom Cruise, or whatever god you believe in that they miss, or you are absolutely toast. And you're going to be seeing those 2-burst kills in the background, in the gameplay. I slow some of those down for you, and you can see it doesn't even require perfect precision. It's just one headshot burst, one body shot burst, and you are deleting people at speeds they literally cannot compete with. All of these things ultimately mean I'd be an idiot if I excluded this sidearm from the top 5. Moving on to the Drang. Listen, we all know it. You know it, I know it, Bungie knows it. This gun is stacked. It's an adaptive frame sidearm, which is already a win, with extra zoom and basically built-in rangefinder. That means it can take duels a little bit deeper than most sidearms and compete with things like Shayura's Wrath and other SMGs, and land shots just outside of most sidearms' reach. That's instantly going to catapult this thing into the top 5. Not only that, but it's fully craftable. Unlocking the ability to craft these things is mind-numbingly horrific, though, and painstaking. I will warn you about that, but you can craft them. And I've crafted a couple for different purposes and racked up thousands of kills this season alone on Drangs. The perk pool has a couple of winning combinations. One of them is the Wellspring and Incandescent combo. Banger combo for PvE, banger combo for PvP. If you have a Solar 3.0 build that you can drop this into, I run it with the Mantle of Battle Harmony and a Well of Radiance, and I just don't use my super. So that way the Mantle of Battle Harmony is basically giving me a cracked out version of Rampage every time I get a kill with the Drang. And on top of that, I can throw abilities like crazy because I've got the Origin trait 2XS working for me as well, which is really, really cool. If you're not playing a build that leverages Scorch stacks, forget that combo, the Incandescent and Wellspring combo, and go with Moving Target and Zen Moment if you're on controller. If you're on M&K, Moving Target and Rampage probably. This gun is an S-tier dueling weapon, but 2 things that you need to know about it are this. 1, the gun gets beat in close quarters by other top-tier sidearms because other sidearms can reach better stability, better aim assist, better TTKs up close and personal, where you're not just landing all headshots, you know what I mean? So to use Drang well, you need to manage your space well and keep people at arm's length. You have to take advantage of that range gap where Drang can compete and other things can't, like other sidearms. If you keep people at that secret special sauce distance, you're going to dump on them. Otherwise, you need to, when they pass through that space, prime them when they can't shoot back, and then when they step into a CQC duel with you, you've got a sort of primer. The second thing that you got to remember about Drang is that Drang has an issue where it sometimes, for no reason whatsoever, will blank, like just ghost bullets. I can't quantify it, I can't explain it, just know that it happens. And it has happened with the gun ever since its first iteration in year 1. Other than those 2 things, this is an S-tier gun. So if you are good at managing your space and keeping people in that sweet spot where Drang is exceptional, you're going to dump on people. And finally, that brings us to the Forgiveness. Here's the TLDR. The Forgiveness is a stat monster with base numbers that instantly launch it to the top, the cream of its crop, the absolute best aggressive 2-round burst sidearm in the game, statistically speaking. But the drawback is a limited perk pool with 1 clear winning combo, in my opinion, and everything else is subpar. I have a full video breaking this weapon down, and it has become one of my most used sidearms this season based on how it performs in today's sandbox. It's consistent, it's reliable, it hits from the hip, it hits from the air, it's responsive and easy to handle. My preferred roll on the Forgiveness gives it 83 range, 66 stability, and 100 aim assist, with benefits to strafe speed from moving target and extra range and damage from the activation of multi-kill clip. It is a dueling monster. Slap adept mods on it based on your own personal preferences. The airborne effectiveness is 25 at base, but it can go as high as 40, which means it can be the most consistent sidearm from the air in the game. The thing is nasty, but like I said, the perk pool is limited. First column includes Demolitionist, Subsistence, Well-Rounded, Moving Target, Air Assault, and Killing Wind. Some people were initially arguing that Well-Rounded was the best choice here. I can tell you, I got a god roll with Well-Rounded on it, and after playing with a stacked roll of this thing with Well-Rounded, it is most certainly not as desirable as people were making it out to be. The buffs are relatively small and infrequent, even when using a grenade-centric build. I tried to drag and drop it into my trip mine build on my Hunter and was thoroughly unimpressed. The only two perks that you want in this column, trust me, the only two perks you want in this column are Moving Target and Killing Wind, with Moving Target being my number one pick. In the second column, you've got Rapid Hit, Adrenaline Junkie, Vorpal Weapon, Multi-Kill Clip, Harmony, and Fragile Focus. My two picks in this column are Multi-Kill Clip and Fragile Focus. Multi-Kill Clip is just nasty for kill chaining. It gives you a whole lot of built-in forgiveness into the Forgiveness, where you can still be 3-bursting people without ever hitting the head. You can be, rolling, jumping, dodging, whatever, and just kind of spamming your shots and still get a pretty good TTK if Multi-Kill Clip is up. But I'm going to tell you right now, the Fragile Focus, it's actually pretty solid. It doesn't really extend the damage drop-off range by a whole lot. It does, but it's just a little bit. But the thing that Fragile Focus does well is that it makes the gun feel so much better and more consistent at the ranges that it already hits full damage on. I can tell a huge difference in the way the gun feels with Fragile Focus on and off the gun. And right now, I've put about 1,000 kills on a Fragile Focus roll and about 1,200 on a Multi-Kill Clip roll. Multi is my number one pick, but you can't go wrong with Fragile Focus either. So if you get one with one of these winning combos on it, hey, I think you're set up with an S-tier lethal killing machine, and that's why it's in the top 5. All right, those are the 5. That's the top 5 right there. So it's time to start ranking them from number 5 all the way up to number 1. We'll build up a little bit of anticipation here. Landing in the number 5 slot, for me, is a swift verdict. Like I said, it's just got an insanely good perk pool, and it hits from down freaking town, but it does take some time and skill to dial in your cadence with this thing, as precisions kill very fast, but also have very little forgiveness when you miss shots. If you pace yourself and your shots well and start chaining kill clip, hey, you're gonna be going ham. The number 4 legendary exotic for me is the Keening. It's adaptive with a loaded perk pool, meaning it can be tailor-made to fit you, your build, and your preferences while rolling extra perks in both columns, so farming it is a lot easier. And with Arc 3.0 on the horizon, it just might get even better. Number 3 for me is the Forgiveness. I actually personally like it better than Drang, but I also have to be objective and say that if the perk pool was open to more options, then this thing would beat out Drang outright. But until then, it lands comfortably in the number 3 slot. I love it. I love this gun. It's one of the best sidearms in the game and has access to adept mods, which is a big deal. I highly recommend it. And now, here is where things get interesting, and this is where people may start to differ from me if they haven't already in their opinions, and I'm well aware of that. The number 2, second best sidearm in the game for me is the Drang. It's got some good perks and some niche perks that make it hit Solar 3.0 builds just right. And it's got some serious reach with that zoom difference, meaning it's incredible. It's an S-tier sidearm. It's good enough to claim the second best sidearm in Destiny 2 title. But in order to get the best performance out of this weapon, you really have to be conscious at all times about keeping people in that sweet spot range where Drang can slap and punch outside of its weight class. But if they get in close, and with sidearm duels, they're gonna get in close. And then, sometimes those ghost bullets show up, it can be edged out. It's an incredible gun, easily S tier, highly recommend it. But everything has strengths and weaknesses, and that leads me to my number 1 pick for the best legendary sidearm in the game. It's the empirical evidence. Listen, this thing is fully craftable. It has an extremely low barrier of entry with only 1 red border required, which is accomplished less than an hour into the Witch Queen DLC. It has superb base stats, but the fact that you can craft it with enhanced perpetual motion, an enhanced encore, an enhanced adagio for those insanely easy 2-burst kills at a TTK other sidearms can only dream of, means that it takes the number 1 slot for me. People put too much stock in that adaptive frame optimal TTK, but the reality is that sidearms, they're not precision weapons. A lot of the time, you're jumping and rolling and peeking and sliding, and you're outnumbered, and you're not having a lot of sidearm duels that are like hand cannon duels, where you both post up, stand and deliver, and the guy that who lands his 3 headshots wins. Sidearms aren't like that. Sidearm duels are nothing like that because of the nature of their intended range. A lot of times, melee abilities and grenade abilities and movement abilities are a factor in these engagements. And the empirical evidence can be very consistent, very easy to use, and then chain kills in 2 trigger pulls without perfect precision like an adaptive needs. And there you have it. My top 5 legendary sidearms in Destiny 2. What do you think? How would your list differ from mine, and why? Now listen, I've used all of these extensively and have arrived at this list after literally, I'm not exaggerating, thousands of hours of game time with sidearms across all subclasses and dozens of PvP builds. All of that served as the foundation for my decisions today, and I hope I did all of these sidearms justice. Now, these are not the only 5 good sidearms in the game. All 5 of these are exceptional weapons, and you can't go wrong with any of them, but I'll also include a tier list graphic of all relevant sidearms right now for you to look at and see how all of these sidearms today stack up and where I place them. So thanks so much for watching the video today. I genuinely appreciate your support. Listen, this video, it took a long time to make and edit and to gather gameplay for, and most of the gameplay that I gathered for this video didn't even make it into the video because I had to do my due diligence. That meant revisiting sidearms I haven't used in a while. I had to make sure, like, for example, the Swift Verdict wasn't in my initial top 5 until I went back, farmed a different role, went into PvP, spent a lot of time with it. So I had to do my research and make sure that I took every relevant sidearm for a spin to give it its due diligence, and that's actually how the Swift Verdict ended up making it into my top 5, and it actually beat out Peace Bond, which was in that number 5 slot originally for me. So I didn't just throw something together, I definitely had to spend a lot of time investing in it. So if you enjoyed the video, would you consider leaving a like on it? Because that's super helpful. And consider subscribing to my channel for additional Destiny 2 content. Thanks so much. Be warm and well fed, my friends. And I hope to catch you in the Crucible.